Hey, everybody, and welcome into this episode of Chamber Chat Live here on Facebook and podcast if you consume it that way. My name is Bill Vitiello. I'm the Director of Institutional Relationships and the Director of Marketing for the Victory Bank in Limerick. Again, welcome. So glad you're here with us. And we apologize we didn't get to last Wednesday's episode. We had some heavy technical difficulties, and we just had a small window there to execute through the StreamYard link. So we will bring our guest, Drew Leck. He will be back either at the end of this season or perhaps even the beginning of next season. He does have some exciting things to share with the community, but you also need to hear his story too, which is really cool. Can't wait to interview him. So again, welcome into this episode. Eileen, how you doing?
I'm good, Bill. How are you? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you as well. I guess this could be a week of how hot is it jokes if we really wanted to.
We could do that, yes.
Yeah, since my bear jokes were so bad on the last episode, I'm going to refrain from doing any heat-related jokes. So
I didn't hear any comments, so people they didn't think they were that bad.
Yeah, I guess not. You know, so. All right, so you have the President's Desk, and before we continue, we'll let everybody know that this is going to be the last President's Desk for Season 6 because
Correct.
You are going away on vacation, which is a much-needed R&R, hopefully,
Yes.
vacation, and then you have some other scheduling conflicts through the remainder of the season. So we can't wait to see what you got for Season 7. Can you believe it?
Yes.
And also a new feature that goes along with the president, which you and I talked about, which I thought was pretty cool. So,
yes.
But go ahead. I'll turn it over to you. What do you have from the President's Desk today? Thank you.
So I think this is actually a good topic to talk about with you on screen. So I don't know, a lot of our members are familiar that we share some tips from these handy dandy little books. And as we get ready to go back into in-person networking events, I thought it would be a good opportunity to share with our listeners a networking tip that is from this book. So one of the things that we try and explain to new members specifically that come into the organization is how to properly network. And one of the tips, actually number 2 in this book, is called Become a Super Connector. Great networkers enjoy connecting people. The secret of positive networking, discovering what you can do for someone else, is part of their DNA, their dynamic networking ability. When they find out what that something is, it's not enough to think about it, they do it. Work the Pond calls this high-level awareness network SHEPA. So one of the things that I just wanted to touch on today is, again, it's not about the sale, it's about the relationship. So I would encourage people as we go through July and we go through August and we get ready for the start of chamber events again, really kind of back into the regular momentum in September, that maybe they want to work on brushing up on their network a little bit before they start seeing people in person. So again, I think you've even mentioned this on a prior chamber chat while we were going through, these last 15 months of the pandemic, really reaching out and saying, what can I do for you? It's not about that sale and what you need out of that person. It can also be what you might be able to do for them, because that's the relationship that will last. And that's when somebody comes back to you when they do think of possibly needing your service. Because again, we all know people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And the only way to really build that up is to really become that super connector and really have people see value in being connected to you. And I know you are a super connector. You're very good at that. And people have mentioned it several times. I think some people have even mentioned it on the show. And, even through social channels like LinkedIn, same process is available. And you can use tools like that to even do it. It doesn't have to be in person. But sending person an email, even if you see an article somewhere that would pertain to a particular industry and you have a connection in that industry and you think it might be something of interest to them, pop it off in an email, link them to that article, just as an extra touch. And I just encourage people to take the next 2 months and maybe set a goal for yourself to do one of those a week even. just to kind of get yourself ramped up again for September and kind of extending those relationships until you can meet in person.
That's such a great point that you read. I feel like this could be an episode in and of itself. And I appreciate the compliment that you paid to me being a super connector. But I have to tell you, and again, if this is any incentive for some chamber members out there, I wasn't always a super connector. I started out actually really aggressive in some of the chambers that I was a part of. And I'm like, well, who can I introduce you to? Or who can you introduce to me? And hey, did you know we had a, X account and so on and so forth. And it came to a point in time where I got it. Like it was all about relationships. And I think that other part of being a super connector kind of came naturally as time went on. So I'm happy to do that. And I would encourage folks, if you have any reservations about going to these events, or you feel uncomfortable or don't know how to quite approach it, contact somebody from the chamber, contact me. You can send me an email, give me a call, whatever you want to do. And I'll make sure that you integrate nicely into the group or to the networking events, and we can just kind of take it from there.
And again, just to kind of shout out to you previously as an ambassador and our current 5 ambassadors that we have, that's why those individuals, are part of our chamber events, because they themselves have connections. And if we can connect them immediately to a new member who's attending their first event, and they can help introduce that person to their own connections, it just helps that new member have a better experience.
Yep, absolutely. Such a great point to bring up. Thank you so much, Eileen.
Not a problem.
What
Thank you for your time.
Oh, that's it?
I just wanted to check in.
Right.
Event calendar is going to be slow over the summer. So I really didn't want to focus on any specific events. Just wanted to share that tip as we move into a couple months of a summer break. And again, just wanted people to get used to that networking again and kind of ramp themselves up. So that's all. I'm signing off.
For the last time on season 6.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, enjoy your time off. We have it under control here. So
I know you do. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
We'll see you later. Stay hydrated. All right, everybody. Such a great tip from Eileen there. Again, that could be an episode in and of itself. And maybe we will make that one. Maybe we'll bring on another super connector for season 7. We'll see how it goes. So my next guest, Drew, if you'd be kind enough to bring him in here, is from Dischell, Bartle, and Dooley. His name is Jon Young. Jon, welcome to Chamber Chat.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And this is so great because we've had actually several of your fellow attorneys on the Chamber Chat. You guys are bringing a tremendous value to the chamber, talking about a whole host of different topics. Can you give us an idea of what you're talking about today, please?
I just wanted to take a few moments and talk about, the outline of Pennsylvania employment law for businesses of all types, from both sides, employee and employer perspectives.
That's great. Jon, if you have an opportunity to move a little bit closer to your mic, maybe that would be helpful so we can hear you a little bit better.
Does that help?
Yes, helps a little bit. Yep, absolutely. So employment law is extremely important, obviously, as business owners. And we're also navigating quite a bit right now, coming out of the pandemic. So tell me, is there something particularly trending, or did you want to start somewhere with the law that you wanted to explain to us?
Well, it's a multi-layered subject, so it's sort of dependent on the understanding of your audience. But I'll presume everybody in the business world understands that Pennsylvania is an at-will employment state, and unless you're in a union or have a performance contract, you work at the will of your employer, and your employee is also not bound. It's an open market in that sense. There are some exceptions to that, public policy exceptions, any discriminatory practice by a protected class or against a protected class, and certain public policy exceptions, environmental, workers' compensation, but by and large, it really is a day-to-day at-will sort of context that you view, unless you're in a union or you have some sort of direct employment contract as a physician, a dentist, a dental hygienist, or something like that. That's the general overlay of what we're talking about. And then I wanted to talk about a couple other topics, COBRA, ERISA, just an outline of workers' comp and some general UC stuff, and ending up with the calls that I'm getting nowadays related to the pandemic and I guess vaccination standards and such in employment.
Yeah, and I think so. So, John, we're still having a little bit of issue with your volume, but stay right there. Fine, don't do anything. I'm actually going to speak a little bit lower, so anybody who is on the podcast or listening, you can turn up your speakers a little bit. I promise I won't blast you out here. So, John, you wanted to first talk about let's talk about maybe what's in front of us here and the pandemic. To talk about some of the nuances with the vaccinations and what employers can and can't do, please.
Well, as always, attorneys are useless in the immediacy of the moment. It takes us a long time to sort of litigate and then appeal and come up with digestible rules. But the standard has been, both in an educational setting with kids and vaccines and hospitals and generally businesses, that if a vaccine had been approved by the FDA, it was legitimate and understandable that it could be mandated as a prerequisite for or a mandatory give for continued employment. The strange situation is all the COVID-19 vaccinations have been distributed under an emergency use authorization, which means they do not have full FDA approval. Despite that, I see that several of the big pharmaceuticals, and I interact because of my practice with a lot of the big hospitals, they've mandated the vaccine. They've had some people contest that without great success.
Yeah, and I would imagine from the employer's perspective, obviously, you would want your staff vaccinated. I mean, we got to get back to business as usual here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people have distinct rationales. Certainly the medical or scientific questioning of such a requirement doesn't appear will fly in the appellate courts. Of course, the constitutional angle, if you had a religious objection, that may be something that would be sustained. But generally, I think they're going to allow the mandating of vaccines, at least in an at-will employment context, which is most of us.
Yeah. So in your dealings with a lot of your area business owners, are you finding that the majority of their staff is getting vaccinated?
Yes, but even in law firms, we have a couple people, one who in my firm who indicates they have been advised by their physician as to some pre-existing comorbidities and they have concerns. But to be honest, for the success and restoration of a positive business climate, we all really have to strive towards herd immunity. Maybe that's preaching, but I apologize.
No, don't apologize, because there's so many information points here. I mean, we could also, say that the folks that aren't vaccinated now, apparently the Delta variant is kind of working its way through that community. So there's very real things out here. It's not a political statement. It's, we're dealing with the issues that are in front of us here. So was that all you wanted to talk about, the vaccines, or was there anything more?
It's evolving, but I guess this is to cut to the quick. The common sense view of the employer is going to be, by and large, upheld. So if someone comes to you with a really valid exception, okay. But other than that, I would think that mandating, I know that the largest hospital in Philadelphia has, despite reservations by some of their employees.
Right. Okay. All right, good. Well, like you said, that will probably continue to evolve, and we'll get more information and more scenarios, right?
Yeah, let's hope it's information in appellate cases that are never used again for the next 100 years.
Yeah, yes. All right, so what about, you also mentioned you wanted to talk about COBRA.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively simplistic law that has a lot of misunderstandings surrounding it. COBRA just requires the continuation of health benefits after a COBRA event. Maybe the death of the employee to his family if they were covered under your health insurance. Obviously, the termination or end of employment. But a lot of people don't know that reaching Medicare status could theoretically give you the ability to sever your employee from your health plan to the extent that they had an alternative basis for health care under Medicare. And the only guidance given by the federal government with regards to regulations are it's 18 to 34 months, 36 months, 18-month minimum, where they get the ability to participate in the health plan at the same premium rate. With them, of course, at their option, footing the full bill, where normally the employer is paying a great portion during the term of employment.
Mm-hmm. So I would go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we're about halfway through the episode here. If anybody has any comments or questions for Jon, he's here. He's available to answer them. I'll be able to read them to you, Jon, if they do wind up popping on here. So again, you have a subject matter expert, an attorney here with Dischell, Bartle, and Dooley. So go ahead, Jon. What you wanted to continue?
Let's jump around a little bit and talk about I guess what I consider the spectrum of things that come to me typically in the employment law context. Mm-hmm. Overtime. There are massive misperceptions about the Fair Labor Standards Act and overtime. It applies to the payment of wages for hours in excess of a 40-hour work week. It doesn't apply to Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays. That's something that has sort of been misperceived. It applies to non-exempt employees, which mean typically non-salaried employees, but certainly employees that aren't making executive or managerial decisions. The criteria is not as clear as you would think, but basically if the person has the power to spend the company's money without permission, they're probably not entitled to overtime. They're a exempt employee. It's funny, even when someone asks at their own volition, could I work Saturday to finish this job, or I'd be willing to work, I don't care about the overtime and all that. Unfortunately, the federal government isn't as understanding as that. I had a Pennsylvania Dutchman and Amishman who asked for Saturday work and said he would do it at straight time when the employer said he couldn't afford it. And actually, they were audited by the Fair Labor Standards Wage and Hour Division in Philadelphia. And the employer, is just an innocent machine shop operator, was forced to pay him the overtime, where the Amish Dutchman was so honest, he said he wouldn't take it. I had to beg him to take the check to end the case. I said, give him to the church, do anything, because the feds won't stop pounding this poor guy.
Right.
And that's eventually what happened. So it's very gray and bureaucratic.
Mm-hmm. And see, folks, this is why you need a subject matter expert to navigate this kind of stuff. Believe me, as a business owner, I know there's so many different tentacles in your business, whether you're worried about inventory or it's marketing or personnel. This is just one of those tentacles that you have to put out there. And again, having a subject matter expert like Jon available is really, really good. We're pulling up your website now here, Jon. I know you have a very competent team of individuals who can navigate most areas of if not all of the areas of business practice. I mean, I see there, employment law, workers' compensation, personal injury, business law.
Very true.
All right. What else would you like to chat about? What was the next topic that you wanted to discuss there?
Let's talk about workers' compensation. That's probably one of the more common employment pitfalls. Workers' compensation has changed dramatically over the decades since I've been involved. It applies to an injury that happens in the course of employment. The deal that was sort of cut in the Industrial Revolution in the early 1900s in Pennsylvania was the employee would limit his benefit in exchange for the employer's right to claim it was the employee's negligence. So it's a no-fault process. There are exceptions: intoxication, deliberate violation of a work rule. Don't always clean up the spilled oil on the garage floor. Maybe. An injury includes an aggravation, a permanent worsening of somebody's bad back, even if they came in with a bad back. The controls that have been broadened for the employer are that after the injury, first of all, you should really have a posted panel of potential treating physicians, because since 95, you control the first 90 days of treatment with reliable doctors of the employer's choice. And you should also mandate an absolute rule that they must report the injury before their end of the shift. Just giving you some degree of assurance that it did happen on the job. After the night, there used to be a binary thing where you had to accept the claim or not. Now you can accept it in a temporary way. You should be conversant with your insurance company to sort of understand their claims practice. And there are ways to mitigate premiums by creating safety committees and things of that nature.
Boy, that notification tip is a big one. I remember, so I used to work in the supermarket industry, and it was very active. There was ovens and mixers and slicers and pallet, compactors and so on and so forth. Very, very active scene. And clearly remember, as a manager, making sure that I hit those points. But your point about reporting it by the end of the shift is a really, really good one.
Yeah, I've on both sides, I've been in situations where the Monday morning reported back injury is, I don't know, nebulous. Hopefully it's not related to a pickup football game in the neighborhood, or but you never know.
Right. Well, with social media nowadays, you never know what you wind up finding out, right?
Wow, do you? The pitfalls of social media is a whole another presentation.
Yeah.
But it's very true, and there seems to be some inability of many of the young to understand that it is broadcast in such a universal way.
Sure. All right, so that was workers' compensation. What else did you want to chat about?
Let's talk about unemployment compensation and its strange permutations over the COVID period. Obviously, a thing that always kind of confused me, and I was a human for, I don't know, about 35 years before I became an attorney. So actually works in construction.
You made the attorney joke, not me.
Yeah, I had to. I beat you to it.
Yep.
Anyway, unemployment is dependent on two factors. One, did you pay in, financial determination? And two, what was the nature of your separation from your latest job? So you could move on voluntarily from working in the shoe factory and get fired from the construction company you left that job for 2 weeks later, and you would be ineligible to the extent your firing was the result of willful misconduct, even though you had accrued, years of unemployment compensation benefits at your prior employer. You really have to understand the nature of termination, and if you're really seeking to limit the unemployment, which often I tell employers not to, it's a relief valve that's cheaper than lawyers and litigation. Make sure that your termination is explicit. We told you 18 times and you continued in your inappropriate behavior, not we're letting you go because we don't believe your performance is, because that's going to fall in that catch-all that doesn't meet the definition of willful misconduct. And a firing will, a layoff certainly will, a job elimination certainly will, but even a firing that is not based in willful misconduct is a valid reason to receive unemployment compensation benefits.
Do you recommend the business, John? Do you recommend the business use some sort of template or structure? Maybe it's outlined in their handbook to address these different issues. So there's kind of very clear steps along the way.
I think that's a really great idea. And if you have touch points which are absolutes as to behavior or as to work rules, they really should be outlined. Certainly, if you want to contest an unemployment compensation claim later down the line, if you show it in the handbook, and if you acknowledge receipt by a signature, I have reviewed the handbook upon employment, you're going to have a lot easier time.
Gotcha. And I know some of the folks who are watching are probably solopreneurs, right? So have their own business. They're just a one-person shop. But as time goes on, you grow the business. Then all of a sudden you have employees. This is excellent stuff to pay attention to. And again, folks like John, you bring them in to consult for you. So just have a few more moments left. John, what else would you like to chat about?
At times, it seems that today's most difficult employment issue is the obtaining of employees from the signs I see in Berks, Chester, and Monco up there. The bonuses, just unbelievable advertisements on 422 on the Turnpike. I don't envy someone. I know that we as a law office have had great problems, and I hope it's a temporary blip. I do know that a federal supplemental in Pennsylvania will only be applied to the PUA claims. PUA was Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. That was basically for the gig employees that couldn't prove a fixed source of employment income. So hopefully things will moderate as the summer goes, because it certainly seems that there are a lot of unfilled positions at every level. And I hope that's not something that sustains.
Is there a time frame that's ending that supplemental?
Things change in Congress nowadays. I guess the expectation is that the supplemental will exist to the end of the year. I think almost 25 states have rejected it out of hand as of July 1. We have not. We're not applying it to people that got unemployment, basic unemployment based on their earnings, non-gig earnings, non-Uber, or traditional earnings, I guess would be a better word. But we are allowing it to be applied to people in that context. I don't see it as a particular positive. I don't want to be political, but sometimes I think you have to ask yourself whether people are going to do the rationally economic thing, and if they can make $20 an hour to sit home, regardless of their political beliefs, they will do that. And especially if they have kids and childcare and all that other stuff. Sure. I'm sympathetic.
Sure. And I am hearing a lot of that, and that's why I think the majority of this is happening. The other part is the fact that they, potentially don't want to expose themselves in the future to any type of pandemic, type of scenario here. So like you, I'm hoping for a somewhat smooth and quick resolve to this. I know as a consumer, it certainly affects me. I know as business owners, it affects them. It affects dreams, and it affects operations, and so on and so forth. So let's hope for a quicker recovery there.
I do know that in a just general context of personal injury, workers' compensation, absence, well, you're much younger than I, but work is good in a therapeutic sense. Work has value even above the economics. The social interaction, there's been studies, psychiatric, medical, which have constantly proved that factor. And if you're in the lawyering business, which involves people being out of the workforce for whatever reason, litigation, or from the standard is if they're out greater than 24 months, the likelihood of them returning becomes much harder. So let's hope we wrap up here by the end of the year and get on our way. Just
And get on our
say a prayer.
Get on our feet again. Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much for joining today. Before we go, we had a nice message in from Joe Kincaid. I'm looking off to the side here. John is the best. He represents me on several fronts as a business owner as well, and a personal all-around great guy. So it's a nice compliment there from Joe.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Appreciate the opportunity.
No, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Again, you and your firm are providing tremendous value to our business community here at the Chamber. So thank you again for being on today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Sure. Have a great day. Hold on just a moment there. Thanks, everybody, once again for tuning into this episode of Chamber Chat Live on Facebook and on podcast. My name is Bill Vitiello. I'm the Director of Institutional Relationships and the Director of Marketing for the Victory Bank in Limerick. And until we connect again, all my best. Bye for now.